put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. It's an open mic night for photographers. Get ready for 60 minutes of your photography questions in real time with answers from your host, Joe Edelman.
Hey gang, how is everybody doing tonight? It's Monday, which means it's time for TogChat. And thank you all for stopping by, checking in and spending the evening with me. If you haven't checked in yet in the chat, please do. Let me know that you're here. Let me know where you're from. So tonight's topic, gang, this is one that I've been getting a lot of questions about lately in kind of different forms, but I really felt it's worth touching on. And so the question and topic tonight is, what makes a great photograph? And more importantly, why you really shouldn't give a damn about what makes a great photograph. So let me explain, because I know that's going to get a couple people like all razzled, like, wait, I'm trying to take really, really great pictures and I want to be good at what I'm doing. So Joe, how in the world can you say that I shouldn't give a damn if my picture's great? Well, that's the point. I'm not saying that you shouldn't care if your picture is great. I'm saying that you shouldn't care what people tell you makes a great picture. So let me explain. Follow along, because for those of you that like structure and for those of you that like rules, this is going to be a little challenging for you to kind of get your head wrapped around. But seriously, I think you'll all get it. So in fairness, maybe I shouldn't say you shouldn't give a damn, or maybe you should care about what makes a great photograph, but you shouldn't care about all the reasons that other people tell you. And that's really the point. If we go to Google, and I did this right before I came on air. If we go to Google and we type in what makes a great photograph, we are going to get back 11,500,000 plus pages. So that's a whole lot of hot air on the internet telling you what's going to make a great picture. And here's the thing. Most of those 11 million pages, if you actually sift through them all, and no, I did not go through even 50% of the 11 million pages, but I went through actually about the first 20 pages of search results. And most of them are going to tell you that you got to worry about composition. So Nelson Santos, you were going to skip the ads, but you like the serif. That's awesome. Okay, so most of those pages are going to tell you that you got to worry about things like composition rules, and that you should use leading lines, and that you should make sure that you've got proper exposure, and yeah, all that rules crap, that four-letter word stuff. No. See, here's the problem with this concept of what makes a great photograph. And, full disclosure, where's this coming from? I've had a bunch of conversations in the last few days. I had one photographer reach out to me online today. I had another question or another conversation with a photographer today. I've had two conversations over the weekend. And while they were all slightly different about different aspects of their photography or their photography careers, it all came back to, how do I know when I'm doing well? How do I know when my work is getting better? And here's the thing that I really sincerely want you all to understand, and I really want you to believe. You'll know when you decide it's there. Let me explain. Think back to the very first time you took a photograph. Maybe it was with an Instamatic camera back in the 60s or the 70s. Maybe it was with a sheet film camera or a 35mm camera or a medium format camera. Maybe it was a digital camera, maybe one of those little compact cheapies, or maybe it was a DSLR, or maybe it was a phone. Think back to the very first time that you took a picture and the feeling that you had when you looked at the picture and said, hey, that's really cool, like I just did that. And then you decided you wanted to take another, and then another. And then you decided, I want to get a better camera. And maybe if it was decades ago, you decided, hey, I want to learn to develop my own film. Or if it's more recently, you decided, hey, I want to learn how to use Photoshop or Lightroom and make my pictures even better yet. Think about why all of that happened. It happened because you were intrigued. It happened because you were having fun. It turned into a creative outlet. So the thing that you have to understand about how do you know when your work is good? You have to start with you. Is your work accomplishing the goals that you set out for it to accomplish? Now, if your goal is to be the greatest, biggest, best photographer in the world, my sincere advice to you is pack it in, go home now, stop wasting your time, because you're not going to be that person. Now, sounds like I just insulted a bunch of people, right? No, not at all. You're not going to be that person because who is that person? Let's take a poll of all the people that are listening and watching TogChat right now to see who they think is the greatest photographer in the world today, right now. And the problem that we're going to have is we're going to get a whole bunch of different answers. And you guys can feel free. Go ahead. Start pounding those names in there, who you think is the greatest. And seriously, my name better not appear because it's not me. I mean, like literally hardcore, greatest photographers in the world today, living. Who are they? And we're going to get a whole bunch of different answers. And then we're also going to find out that we're going to have a whole bunch of different photographers. Some that might do fashion, some that might be photojournalists, some that might be advertising photographers, some that might be landscape or nature or wildlife photographers. So how can you possibly, and of course, Bish, first thing there with Jason Lanier. Hey, there's a lot of people that think Jason Lanier is the greatest photographer in the world. And you know what? They're not wrong. It's based on their taste. So the thing that you all have to understand is the only way to answer that question is to start by looking at your own work and looking at your own work objectively. Because let's face it, gang, you all, there's a good name I haven't seen in a while, Heisler, Gregory Heisler, one of the best, hands down, without a doubt, okay? One of the things that you've got to start doing is stop worrying about, is it right or wrong? Stop worrying about, is someone else going to say it's great? So I had a conversation with a young photographer earlier today, and this kind of creeped into the conversation. And I realized while I was speaking with this photographer that when I was a kid, starting out in my teens and in my early 20s, I had a luxury that photographers today don't have. And that luxury, I'm going to sound like the old fart now. You ready? I didn't have social media. I didn't feel the need or the pressure to post every other picture I take online so that people could like it or heart it or smile at it or laugh at it or, for that matter, say it's a piece of shit. I didn't have that pressure. I took pictures because I liked what I was taking pictures of, and I liked taking pictures. And then I would take a look at other photographers' work and compare it to my own. And I would ask myself simple questions. What do I like about theirs compared to mine? Is there something in theirs that I wish I was able to do? Or is there something in theirs that stands out to me in particular that I feel my work is lacking? And then that would give me something to work towards. But it was honestly never about likes. Certainly, if I would show a picture to my parents when I was a teenager, or to a friend, or to a teacher at school, and got a genuine, hey, that's really cool, oh, man, that was the greatest thing in the world. And don't get me wrong, gang. I'm a happy man when I post a picture online and it gets a couple of hundred likes. Of course. Who wouldn't be? But that is so much more pressure. And, I realized while I was having this conversation that I was lucky because when social media came along, I was already confident enough in what I was doing and in my work and had already established a career. I had already had pictures in Cosmopolitan and done magazine covers, and I had done work for the New York Times and the Los Angeles Times, and I had been published in all these places, and I had done all the things that I wanted to do. So when social media came along, there was no pressure. I was still just doing my thing. I certainly appreciate the likes, and I love when they happen, but my self-worth was not based upon that. So I do find that a lot of young photographers, and when I say young, remember, as I always use the disclaimer, young could mean somebody that's in their 50s who just picked up a camera a year ago. So young to the process, okay? I find that so many young photographers today are plagued with anxiety. Anxiety over, is it good enough? Is it right? Is it correct? And in part, that's because there are 11,500,000 pages on the internet that tell you this is how it's supposed to be. This is what it needs to include. This is what has to be a part of it. This is how you make it big. Come on. Turn that stuff off. If you folks that are here have been following me for a while, you've heard me talk about this. For those of you that have not been to one of my TogChats before, buckle in. This statement might surprise you. A lot of you need to spend a lot less time on YouTube and on the internet. Stop looking at other people's work and listening to photographers tell you how great they are or what they've done and how they did it, and actually go out and practice photography. Do photography. Pick up a camera and take pictures. And then take the time to reflect. Not with a reflector or a mirror. Take the time to reflect on your work, on your experience, and evaluate it honestly and sincerely. And realize at the end of the day, if you want to reach a point where you are making money as a photographer, if you want to reach a point where people do give you hundreds of likes and all that stuff, you're not going to do it consistently without working hard, without perfecting your technique, without truly understanding the art and science of photography. Bottom line, you're not going to do it without a hell of a lot of hard work. And that takes time. So in addition to the anxiety, I find that a lot of new photographers, young photographers, have no patience. They think that because all this information is available online, and believe me, this is a conversation I have at least 3 times a week, every week. They think that because all this information is available online and because they have the money to go out and buy pro photos or Sony A9s or whatever brand, whatever lens, whatever gadget, because they can buy it all, they think that they can shortcut the process and they can be a pro in no time. And then they're incredibly frustrated when they can't make the mark, when they realize their own work is lacking. But yet, they're working and they're working hard. They're spending tons of time watching YouTube videos, learning and soaking in as much as they can. In fact, they're soaking in so much that when they do pick up a camera, they're essentially handcuffed. They are completely unable to take great pictures because what they haven't done is they haven't put in the time with the camera in their hands. So, gang, my thoughts for tonight. Stop worrying. You need to start out as a photographer by being selfish. Do it for yourself. Not for others, not for the masses, not even for clients. Do it for yourself. Because the simple premise of any photographer in the world, if you want to make money as a photographer, or for that matter, if you want to just get lots of likes, let's just say that you want to continue doing it as an amateur and just get lots of likes. You have to do what you do it to the best of your ability, and then find the people that are dumb enough to like it or pay you for it. That's simply how it works. You're not going to find anyone who's taken a different path and been successful. So, those are my thoughts, gang. Okay? On to our TogChat business. So, first of all, you guys know the drill. Please, if you haven't done it yet, follow me on social media. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Those are the places you'll find me the most. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe to the channel. And hey, come on, seriously, thumbs up. It only takes a second and it's not painful. You don't have to press hard. Just push that little button. It would be greatly appreciated. And comments are also appreciated both here in the live chat as well as in the comments below the video, especially when the video is over, okay? So I'm gonna switch over here so we can see the chat screen, and I will go ahead and start scrolling through here trying to get to some of your questions. If you have a question that you absolutely have to get answered, and you're going to see really quick here, there's a lot of questions in here already. You guys are coming up with some good ones tonight. I've been seeing them go by while I'm talking. So if you've got a question that you really need answered and I'm not getting to it for some reason, remember that in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen is that little $ in the chat window. You can do a super chat. A donation of a little bit of it, as little as $1 will ensure that I will answer your question no matter what tonight, even if I have to stay here late. You have my word, okay? So Thomas, you got that Tokina 100 millimeter, and damn, what a lens for portraits. Yes, it is, man. And you know, I wish I could take all the credit for it. I've certainly been spreading the word about it a lot. He gets really upset if I don't make it clear. Ken Wheeler, the angry photographer, he was talking about that lens actually long before I was. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I did not hear about the lens from him, but indeed, I know he has videos that go back quite a ways before me. I actually heard about it literally from a couple people that attended a workshop I was at, and it is awesome lens, really, really great stuff. So I want to go back here and see what we've got for questions. And it's good. Hey, so I'm seeing a lot of comments here about you guys, like, you know, doing lots of shooting. So I'm glad to see that this message resonated. I mean, I really, really am. I think it's one of those things. Some people get it, some people don't. And the people that don't get it, I really want to be clear. They're not stupid. They're not wrong. It's just, you know, in trying to kind of see the big picture, it's easy for me. I've been at this for 40 plus years. So, you know, I can turn around and I can look back on it, and I've had really the luxury of being around before the internet and being around during the internet. And I love the internet. I love the technology. God, it's amazing. I mean, here I sit, right? But, you know, to be able to kind of see both sides of it and understand how it has made changes, if I could snap my fingers and make one massive change in the photography world to try and help new and young photographers, it would be somehow to be able to take that pressure off. And unfortunately, that's part of the human psyche, to want to compare and to want to compete. So I realize I can't do that, but you know, that's really what it comes down to. So key lime pie cookies. Key lime pie cookies are like really pretty freaking awesome, except I think I gained a couple pounds with those. So yeah, Thomas Palmer, the worst thing is a feeling when you compare your work to your Instagram feed. Drives you nuts. And you know what? I completely understand that. I mean, seriously, I do. The challenge is, don't compare too much. You know, if you see something, what I would advise you to do, if you see something on your Instagram feed and it really resonates with you, it just really connects with you, turn it into a lesson. You know, we all tend to be a little bit lazy. One of the things that is great about all this visual input that we get all day, every day on the internet, is there are great lessons to be learned. Because remember, as you guys have heard me talk about a lot, if you take the time to study a picture, you can reverse engineer most pictures. You can figure out what kind of lighting modifiers were used. Look at the catch lights in the eyes. You can figure out where the lights were placed. Look at the catch lights in the shadows. So you can reverse engineer how to take a great shot. But most people don't take the time to do it. They see a great picture. It's like, oh, that's really good. God, it sucks because I can't do that. And that's the end of the thought process. No, you have to take the time. And I did this when I was a kid. I would look at pictures that I really like, and I would try to reverse engineer them and figure out how did they do that. So, I mean, that's part of how you teach yourself, okay? So, all right, let's go back here. SWAT, is Herb Ritz alive? You know, I don't think actually Herb Ritz is still alive. Jason Lanier doesn't suck. Guys, come on. Carl Taylor for portraits, Jerry Honus for weddings. Yeah, you know what? They're great photographers. The photographers that I would wind up picking, in many cases, are not photographers that are even well known to the public. So Amanda's got a question here. Do you think that it's worth it to pay extra for the Palsy Buff Einstein, or do you think that it's not worth the extra money compared to the Alien Bees or the Digibees? Well, Amanda, I don't think you're asking the right question. So I would flip your question, and I would say, why do you think you need the Einsteins? So certainly the Einsteins do have some features that the Digibees and the Alien Bees don't have. The Einsteins I know for one, they are a little bit faster on the flash duration. So if you want to do lots of pictures of water drops, it will make it a little bit easier, but that doesn't mean you can't do it without the DigiBees or with the DigiBees or the Edelman. It depends on what you're after. So Amanda, I'm going to hope you're still here, fingers crossed. Update your question and let me know seriously why you think you need it. If you're asking a question just because like that's Paul C. Buff's top of the line, then I would say no, that's the dumbest reason in the world to buy it. And just the fact that you're asking me the question, my answer that I really want to give you is no, don't spend the extra money, because if you can't tell me why you need that flash, well, then you don't need that flash. That's the point, okay? So let's keep going here. Katie says Andy Leibovitz. Yeah, I'll tell you what, Andy Leibovitz is not only among one of the most famous, but also an incredible photographer. Absolutely. So I know I had a couple here back in the beginning. German, what's a good entry-level camera to have some start with? German, that's another one of those questions. It's a very broad question, so I'm hoping you're still here. Update your question in the thread for me. What do you want to photograph? And what do you want to do with your pictures? So it's a very reasonable question to say, hey, I'm really interested in photography. Where should I start from a camera standpoint? But you're asking the question in such a generic way that if anybody answers your question the way you've asked it, you're actually going to wind up with a high likelihood that it's bad advice. Not because they don't know what they're talking about, but because you really need to give us a little bit more information. So give me a little bit more background. What do you want to take pictures of? What are you trying to accomplish with your camera? And then I could tell you what a good camera would be to start. And when you type that information in, do me a favor and let me know what you're working with now. I mean, if it's just a phone, cool. Or if you have like a little compact digital camera, tell me what your level of experience is to this point. And then I can definitely give you some good solid information to work with, okay? Let's see here. Oh, we got somebody from the Lehigh Valley. Hi, John. How you doing? So I knew I had a question all the way. Anthony Greer, hello from Chicago. Are there grants out there for beginner or student photographers? Anthony, there are. I mean, the challenge with grants. So here's a couple things. There are a lot more grants available, and there's a lot more money available for young photographers who have demonstrated talent, ability, dedication, and who are looking for grants and support to be able to further their ability by working on specific projects. In terms of, is there a grant to basically just say, yeah, you're a good kid, we'll give you a bunch of money so you can go learn photography? I don't want to say they don't exist, but I haven't seen them. Certainly, you would potentially, I don't know, Anthony, if you're high school or college age already, but if you're like high school age, you would potentially be able to get some scholarship from maybe an art school or a college that has a good photography program. That would certainly be an opportunity. But generally speaking, you're not going to find grant money that is just going to be handed out because you want to learn photography. You are going to find grant money if you have already demonstrated some skill and desire and work discipline to then be able to go ahead and be rewarded to say, yes, we see your potential. We are going to give you X amount of dollars and X amount of time to go out and do a photographic study of this or that, you know, whatever. I think that's where you're generally going to find you'll be able to get some grant money, okay? So there was a question back here. I got to find it. Here it is, EW Images. How do you know it's time to upgrade your camera? Well, if you break it or drop it, you know it's time. But I know that's not what you're asking. So, been shooting with a Nikon D5000 since 2010 and considering upgrading. Mostly, you're shooting events, fashion shows, etc., but looking into more portrait work. Okay, so the D5000 is obviously, so for those of you that aren't Nikon people, the D5000 is an APS-C camera. It is definitely one of Nikon's consumer/prosumer, so I'm not positive which of the labels Nikon gives it, but at best, it's a prosumer camera. It's really more of a consumer camera. So it is definitely an entry-level camera. So, you know, at this stage of the game, if you've been shooting for, gosh, 7 years, and if you are progressing, so the key is, you know, you're shooting more than a couple times a year, but you're really working hard at it and you're progressing. If that's the case, EW, by now you should probably be feeling like you've kind of maxed out on that camera, meaning that it's holding you back a little bit. What you need to look at moving forward is, where do you really want to go? So you mentioned portraits, you say you've been doing events, you're doing fashion shows. So that puts us in a situation where there's a good argument for both APS-C, but maybe like their top of the line D500, or potentially going full frame with a camera like the D810, or maybe even a camera like the D750. So now I'm going to talk you in a complete circle. So follow along, and then I'll tell you what you need to do at the end, okay? We could argue go full frame. The challenge with full frame is if you're shooting events, you're not going to get the frames per second capability that you'll get on with the D810 that you'll get on such as the D500. If you decide to go APS-C and you're going to get the frames per rate there, but then of course you're not getting the same amount of megapixels and sensor size for your portraits and your fashion work, which is really only an issue if you are going to make really large images or prints, or your images are going to appear on billboards on the side of buildings. So you see, there's no easy answer. So my advice, and believe me, I could take that circle and I could keep going for a little while with different features. My advice to you is this. If you are in the United States, EW, which I believe you, oh, Maryland, perfect, okay? Rent one of each, sincerely. If you are at a point where you feel like you're ready to upgrade, rent one of each. James Brown, thank you so much, man, for the super chat. I really, really appreciate it. So I would encourage you, rent one of each, because you can do it dirt cheap. Companies like barlenses.com, LensPro2Go, LensRentals.com, there's a bunch of them. Even like B&H and Adorama do rentals. Rent one of each for a weekend and try them out and get a sense. Do understand that if you go with a full frame camera, your lenses that you have for your D5000, I'm going to assume that you bought mostly the DX lenses. They're not going to work well on your full frame cameras. So you're probably going to be in a situation, if you step up to a full frame, you're going to have to buy new glass. So you also need to factor that into your budget. And Chris, yeah, the D850 is about to come out, but we still don't know enough about the D850 yet. And certainly for somebody that's going from a D5000, assuming that the D850 is going to be the D810 plus some, right? Or even if it's, as they say, it's going to be the D5, you know, the baby D5. So whichever one it is, whether it's a step up from the D810 or a step down from the D5, that's a lot more camera than a D5000. So I'm really inclined to say, EW, you should look at a D500 if you want to stay with the crop sensor, the APS-C, or look at a Nikon D750 if you want to move up the full frame. And just for those of you that are clear, and I just learned this today. I don't want to sound like I'm ultra smart, because I'm not. I literally just learned this about the D750 today. The D750 today is one of the highest rated full frame cameras in the Nikon line for low light. So given that EW is shooting events and things like that, the D750 would be a great step up to get him into a full frame camera for doing portraits, fashion work, etc., but still be able to have the low ISO capabilities when doing events, etc. So that's why I went with that. James Parrish, there you go. It'd be great. All James do a super chat. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. So, so here we at now. German Rosario gave me the follow-up. Wants to do portraits, street photography, headshots, and maybe later some landscapes. You have a Canon T6i. So, you know, German, here's the thing. Well, actually, pause. Steve, you know what? I'm going to challenge you on that. Steve just asked, what's his budget? Going back to EW Images, making the step up from the D5000. I'm going to challenge you that, and I'm going to take kind of the perfect world scenario. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you're wrong and, oh, you shouldn't say that. No. I think it's a really, really bad idea to say, well, I can afford this, so I should buy this. That's like saying I can afford a Sony A9, so I'll buy a Sony A9, but yet I've never used a DSLR before, right? Like, why would you do that? So I think it's really, really more important to figure out your needs, figure out what it's going to cost you to meet those needs, and then if there's just absolutely no way that you can afford that jump, then you start working backwards to say, okay, what will be the most logical, you know, the most logical kind of step down that's within my price range. And Chris Renner, if you want to migrate to the D850 when it comes out, cool. I got to tell you, though, if you're reading all the stuff that's out there, that's kind of a foolish statement to make. And I'm not trying to pick a fight. I'm just being straight, man. If the D850 is indeed a baby D5, I'm not going to make that jump. I don't have a need for those kind of features. If the D850 is indeed going to have all the higher megapixels we're talking about and all the portrait and high-end features that I need in my D810, then certainly I would consider going to it. Remember, we still don't have firm confirmation on all the details of this camera. And to be perfectly honest, Chris, you clearly sound like a Nikon fanboy, and that's awesome. I mean, I'm a Nikon guy. I guess I'm a Nikon fanboy, but how many megapixels do you need? What are you going to gain from that? Is your work that good, and do you have a demand for that? We're reaching a point, gang. And believe me, I'm not dumping on Nikon here. I'm not dumping on Canon. I'm not dumping on Sony. I'm trying to keep it real. We're reaching a point where you've got to be realistic about how many megapixels do you actually need out of your camera? What do you gain? Do you gain the satisfaction of being able to pound your chest and say, I've got the most megapixels? Well, if that's what you're into, cool. But for me, that's not photography. So I'm on the fence about the D850 from everything we're hearing. In fact, the one feature that was initially supposed to be in it, from all the rumor mills, I would have bought it in a heartbeat. But apparently, Nikon has said, no, that's not happening, and that's the EVF. If that camera had an EVF, I would be there. I'd be first in line, camping out the whole bit. But yeah, we gotta see where it's where it's gonna go. So anyway, I apologize here. Where are we at? Back to German. I got sidetracked there. So you want to do portrait, street photography, headshots, maybe some landscapes, and you're working with a Canon T6i. So German, I'm not a Canon guy, so I apologize. I don't know the whole Canon line. Now that I've said this, there's going to be a whole bunch of people weigh in. So please, gang, before you start typing model numbers into Canon, please make them APS-C model numbers, please. Okay, help me out here. Don't jump ahead to like Canon's most expensive camera that's like $6,000. No. Stick with the APS-C cameras. German, if you feel like you're ready to step up from where you're at, I would encourage you stick with APS-C for now. And part of the reason I say that is because you're kind of all over the board with the type of photography you're doing. That's not bad. That means you're having fun. That means you're learning. That's all good, okay? So I wouldn't jump up to some of these high-end cameras where, these cameras really are designed for certain specialties because you don't really have a need for that yet. I'm a firm believer in working your way up the ladder. What you should consider, German, is kind of the end game. It's like the interview question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Ask yourself that question. What do you see yourself doing with photography in 5 years? The reason I'm telling you to ask that question is because that's going to make or help you make a determination on your lenses. Meaning, if you are really feeling that your 5-year goal is to be working full frame with full frame cameras and doing high-end, maybe advertising work or high-end portraits or fashion, then I would still encourage you for now, move up a level in an APS-C camera. However, make sure that the lenses you are buying are full frame lenses. That way, a couple years from now, when you are ready to finally make that jump, when you have built enough of a foundation of your skills that you want to make that jump to a full frame camera, you're not going to have to buy all new lenses, which is the challenge that EW is going to have if he goes to a full frame. You want to be able to make that jump and already have glass that is going to work on the full frame lenses. So that would be my recommendation for you as far as that goes, okay? Let's see here. So, James Parrish, EBF, yes, absolutely. So, Chris Winter, I understand and agree, but it's a speed and a noise thing. Yeah, come on, man. I mean, I'll go along with the idea that the D850, it sounds like it's going to be much faster in terms of frames per second. Noise, obviously, we don't know yet, so that's a possibility. But I do have to say that, the D810 for a wedding. Now, this is where you and I are going to have to kind of agree to disagree, Chris, because seriously, I'm not looking for debate, but just being honest, this goes back to the same debate that happened with me when the Sony A9 announcement came out, and I ripped into some guy for, asking if it would be a good camera for weddings, okay? One of the things that I'm learning as the old guy I grew up having it beat into me. Spray and pray is not the way to get a great picture. I still believe spray and pray is not the way to get a great picture. I shot weddings myself in my 20s. I've worked in my 20s and teens for many great wedding photographers whose photography then would stand up and even outdistance a lot of the photography that's being done today. And they were working with film cameras with manual advances. They didn't miss pictures. They didn't miss shots. They had some of the most amazing wedding albums you've ever seen still today. So this speed thing, I'm sorry, I will never buy into that. Okay, if you've got to rely on the equivalent of a motor drive to make sure that you're catching shots, then you suck as a photographer, in my opinion. And that applies to anyone. That is not addressed at you, Chris. That is in general. At a wedding, you are dealing with people and psychology. There is no reason to need that kind of speed. There's just not. But all that being said, if you are comfortable with it, if it works for you, and if you're turning out great work, man, then definitely do not change because of what I said. And I'm sure you won't, okay? So, but that's one of those ones you and I will have to agree to disagree, and I completely respect it. I know a lot of photographers today really feel that frame rate and being able to just pop off 20 frames is important to their ability to shoot weddings. I couldn't disagree more. I think it's lazy, and I think it's hopeful, but, it's one of those things. So, Paulie, I'm doing product photography using, oh, by the way, Matthew, thank you so much, man. I really, really appreciate it. I'm doing product photography using a D7100, but lately I've fallen in love with macro. Do you think that the D810 would be a good full frame to step up to? I think that the D810 is a huge step from the D7100, but obviously I use D810s. So, Paulie, I love the camera. I think it's an incredible camera. It was a little bit bittersweet. For those of you that have been following along, I recently sold one of my D810s, and you ready? True story. I did it for you guys. I have two of them, or had two of them. Obviously, any photographer who's working professionally is never going to have just one camera. You need to have a backup at all times. I don't care what kind of photography you're doing. If you're going to make money, you have to have a backup body, period. So I had two D810s. The reality of it is, since I don't shoot full time now, since I am doing this YouTube thing and still shooting to support that, but I don't really need the two D810s. So what I decided to do, in an effort to be able to help a lot of you that are working with different types of cameras, you all know I have the Panasonic GH5, which I use for a lot of my videos, and that's the Micro Four Thirds. So I traded in one of my D810 bodies, and I've picked up a D500, so that when I go out and I do shoots now to be able to produce video, I will do images in each of my shoots with a full frame camera, an APS-C camera, and a Micro Four Thirds camera. So that way I can, number one, show you guys the differences, but also talk to you about obstacles and things that I face, so that I'm relating not just generically, but specifically to each of the different camera formats, okay? So that being said, I love the D810, but it is a lot of camera. So, Paulie, I would say, number one, if it fits within your budget, awesome. Number two, you have to be honest with yourself. Are you at a point where you can really manage that? And when I say manage that, I mean understanding that it's much bigger file sizes, much bigger, files, a lot more detail to work with, all of which are good things, but a little bit more work involved. So it helps to make sure that you really have a good solid foundation under you. If not, I feel like I'm pimping the D7500 tonight, or the D750 tonight, but you might want to go back and look at the Nikon D750. It would be a great step up into the full frame arena for you, to consider. And of course, the other factor is, Paulie, depends on your lenses and where you're at with your glass. Because keep in mind, if you've got all DX lenses, you're going to need to upgrade to FX lenses. So, you've got some cost involved with regards to, making a change like that beyond just the price of the body. So do factor that in mind. But I would also encourage you, which I talked about with EW before, rent one. Especially if you're in the US and in quite a few other countries around the world. But I understand that. I'm sorry for some of you around the world. I know that there are a bunch of countries yet where it's really difficult or almost impossible to be able to rent gear. In the US, you can rent gear dirt cheap for a weekend. So any photographer that's making kind of a big step or a big change in their system, never, ever, ever do it based on a YouTube video, a Google review, or for that matter, what some bozo in a camera store tells you. Sorry, camera store workers, I don't mean it in a horrible way. But the point is, do it based on your own experience. You can rent the camera. I mean, when you look at the price of the camera bodies, a DA10 body is over $2,000. So for $2,000, spend like 50 or 60, or even if it's 100, and rent one for a weekend. Try it out. Make sure you're really going to like it. Then go ahead and make that purchase. Makes a whole lot more sense. Absolutely does. Okay. All right. Let's see. Coast to coast. Whoops. Sorry. Oh, Trevor, thank you very much, man. Late fee. Yeah, I love those late fees, guys. That's awesome. So, coast to coast imagery. Do you recommend photographers who just started out, like maybe 40 years or older, to be a little more aggressive? No one is promised tomorrow, but you probably already have a family and have to prioritize. Wow. The word aggressive is the sticking point here. I would say that, if you're getting into photography after the age of 40, and if you have made that decision to be stupid, you guys have heard me talk about this before. Professional photographers, biggest idiots in the world, right? Nobody picks up a camera because they want to make money. We pick up cameras because we think it'd be cool. And then we get this dumb idea. Wouldn't it be neat if I could make money? And the idea always comes about one of two ways, right? I've talked about this many, many times. It's either, hey, wouldn't it be cool if I could make some money with a camera because that way I can buy more camera stuff? Or the dumber version is, hey, wouldn't it be cool if I could make money with this camera and pay my bills, quit my day job, and be a photographer? How wonderful would that be? The reason I say that professional photographers are stupid because of that is because the minute you make that decision and you actually make that change in your life, the rules change. And a lot of the fun goes out of photography. And you have to work really, really hard to keep the fun in, okay? So, I think that after 40, if you've decided that, you've got that dumb idea in your head and you're going to do it, I think you have to be more aggressive in terms of your work ethic. Yes, you better be prepared to bust your ass, okay? I think you need to be more aggressive, not so much in sales techniques, but in terms of learning marketing. Because the number two mistake that people make when they decide to become professional photographers, which also adds to the fact that professional photographers are all dummies, is that they become professional photographers because, I said so. I'm professional. I am now making my living as a professional. And then they realize they don't know squat about marketing. In fact, they don't know anything about business. They just thought they could take a bunch of pictures and people would pay them. And hey, that'd be cool. And now suddenly it's like, holy crap, like I got to do accounting. And how do I market myself? And like I'm doing all this social media stuff, but nobody cares. Everybody wants it for free. What do I do? And the list goes on, right? So you've definitely got to be a lot more aggressive about getting your head wrapped around that stuff and really kind of figuring out how to make it work. But in all fairness, now that I've been dumping on professional photographers, myself included, in all fairness, that pretty much is the case for anybody that makes a career change later in life or 40s, hopefully in the middle of their life. I just think you have to be, be prepared to really work at it. So, German, thank you very much, man. I really, really appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. And I hope that information helps you, okay? So, Kevin, you can't rent where you're at? Yeah, I'm really sorry, Kevin. And it is kind of a shame. But, the upside is it's getting better. So hopefully it gets better all around the world. Ed, in the Philippines, you can't do it either. Taxes are just too high. Yeah, and I'm sorry, guys. I know I realize every time I talk about renting gear, I'm kind of like elbowing some of you because it's like, yeah, you can't do it, and it sucks. I apologize. But, and I'll be honest, for those of you that can't rent gear, join a local camera club or find a local meetup because even in the Philippines, there's camera clubs, there's meetups, okay? Find other people that are into photography so that you can at least maybe say, hey, like, could I try yours out or hold it? Or can I see some of your images? Would you mind sharing them? Get to know some people that are using them. I mean, even just using Facebook, try and reach out to people that are in your area. But believe me, when you're talking about that kind of an expense, and especially like in a place like Manila where the taxes are really high, that also means the camera gear is really expensive. So you want to do everything you possibly can to try and get your hands on that gear and sample it and really know what you're buying. Never buy gear just because you saw it on, the internet and so said it was great. It's the worst. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful to anybody on YouTube or disrespectful to anybody on YouTube or on the internet. I just mean, hey, that's like really a bad plan. Okay. So let's see here. Melnick, I think people will like their own work more often if they print it more often. Yeah, I mean, I won't disagree with that. I think that the idea of printing images it's not only becoming a lost art, it's becoming a lost thing. I'm not gonna lie, I'm guilty of it. So I have to admit, it's nice to hold a print in your hand and look at a print. But I also have to admit, I'm absolutely fine looking at a big 27-inch image or 31-inch image on a computer screen. So, if nothing else, I think that you need to take steps to be able to put your work in a light that you can review it and kind of analyze it and appreciate it. That's the only way you're going to grow is in part to be able to really study it. Okay. So Ryan Talbot, is it a best practice for your backup camera to be the same model as your primary? Absolutely. And here's why. Now, before you all start chiming in there, he said best practice, right? So we're talking in a perfect world. Some people can't afford to have two cameras that are the same, et cetera, et cetera. So that's not what we're asking here. Best practice. It's best practice simply because let's just say you are a wedding photographer, maybe even a photojournalist. So you go out, you've got one body with a short zoom, maybe like a 24-70 or a 17-35-ish. And then you have the other body with a 70-200. So as you're switching between cameras, you think about it, between those two zoom lenses, you've covered the entire range of pretty much anything you're going to need for a wedding and pretty much anything you're going to need for most newspaper assignments, okay? So the challenge is weddings, newspaper assignments, coast-to-coast imagery. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Weddings, newspaper assignments, stuff moves fast, moves in a hurry. So if you're switching from one camera to the other, you don't want to have to be paying extra attention to where are the controls and what camera does what. And believe me, I've noticed this already even in the time that, which I've only had the D500 here for about 2 weeks. So I've literally only had it out and used it twice in the time that I've had it. It will definitely be a backup to my D810 for anything that I do. And honestly, right now, both my D810 and my D500 are backups to my GH5 just because I'm having a lot of fun with that camera. But if I had to go shoot a commercial job tomorrow, D810 would be the camera that came out of the case. That'll be the one that's used first. But in the short time I've had the D500, I've already been starting to take stock of how many buttons are in different places. And a lot of buttons are in different places. So if I were going to go out and shoot an event with those two cameras, yes, I would have to be extra aware during that event because as I switch back and forth, the controls are in different places. So certainly in an ideal situation, you want two of the same bodies always. Absolutely. Okay. Eric, Big Easy. I'm struggling trying to use Lightroom, seeing how everyone says it's essential. Any thoughts? Eric, I have a feeling that all those people that say it's essential are on the internet. You've never heard me say it's essential. Why? Because I don't use it. I hate the program. Passionately hate it. But let me explain. I actually highly recommend it for most new and young photographers. Lightroom was created by Adobe long after I got into digital photography, long after I had already established a filing and cataloging system for my images. So the fact that I have to import images into Lightroom and then work on them and then export them out and all that stuff, that's like a major pain in the butt. I have no desire to do that. If Lightroom would allow me to simply open up an image and work on it like a raw processor, Lightroom would be awesome. Oh, but wait a minute. Adobe already has that. It's called Camera Raw. And I can access that with Bridge, which allows me to simply go through and edit my images. And then I can go easily into Camera Raw and work on any one or combination of multiple images that I want at a time. And then either let those images saved with the sidecar files in Bridge or go into Photoshop from there. Bottom line, digital files are designed to be processed. So again, just so we're clear on the terminology for once, and I'm using the dictionary, right? Editing is not what you do in Photoshop. Okay? Editing is the process of culling. I like frame number 3. I hate frame number 4. Frame number 5. Oh my God. Frame number 6. Not so much. Frame 8. Yeah, crash. Okay? That's editing. Post-processing is the developing. Hence why in Lightroom, what do they call it? They call it the develop panel, just like in a darkroom. Right? Okay. So digital files are designed to be developed. So, you know, some people like the new Luminaire that's out, this Affinity product. There's a bunch of other options for Photoshop. It's really going to be determined, Eric. And so before you take the easy way out, do the same as I was suggesting before with somebody else with their cameras. Answer the question, where do you want to be with your photography in 5 years? In 5 years, if you want to be doing high-end portraits and beauty shots and fashion, then you need to start working in Photoshop sooner than later. You could begin in Lightroom, but you're going to need to work into Photoshop because you're going to need the liquify tools. You're going to need tools that are available in Photoshop that you cannot get or get as well in other programs. Now, maybe a couple years down the road you will be able to, but right now you can't. So before you kind of settle for something faster, quicker, easier, you need to look at where do you want to get to. Otherwise, you're wasting time. Like you're simply wasting time, and you're causing yourself to have to go through multiple learning curves along the way. So Lightroom, definitely not essential. Developing your pictures, mandatory. That's the way they're designed to work, period. Okay? All right. Chris Warner, thank you for the kind words, man. I appreciate it. It's nice to be able to have a discussion with somebody and kind of disagree on the process and the priorities, but, you know, respect, there's a lot of different ways to get there. So thank you for that. I do appreciate that. I'll let you slide on the linear part, but that's okay. So let's see. Amanda. Oh, thank you for the kind words, Amanda. I appreciate it. Anthony, I would like to practice photography, but I don't have time, neither the people to model. I have a 6500 with an 85mm prime and a Sigma 17 to 55 with the Metabones sitting on a table. Any suggestions? Well, okay, Anthony, listen, I don't know you, so please understand I'm not saying this to be a jerk, okay? But I'm going to give you a little bit of tough love. What that is a bunch of excuses. So now I don't know what you do for a living, and certainly you don't need to tell me. I'm not making this personal, but okay. If you have any kind of a job, if you give your boss excuses about why you can't do things, you eventually lose that job, right? I mean, in life, it's always about what do we get done? What do we accomplish, right? So, you know, if you want to photograph people in general, to say that I don't have people to photograph, well then, how are you going to photograph people, man? Go out on the street, talk to somebody, go online, make conversation with people, get to know people, ask. All you gotta do is ask. I'm sure your parents taught you when you were a little kid, you don't get what you don't ask for, and that's the truth. If you wanna be able to practice, but you don't feel you're at that point and you're lacking confidence, and maybe it gives you anxiety, the idea that I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna get somebody to pose for me and then I'm gonna suck, buy a mannequin. Go to Amazon, go to eBay. You can get like a full head to toe mannequin for like less than $80. And practice with that mannequin. Again, you got to get out of the social media photography mode, which says that every time you go click, it's supposed to be good enough to post on the internet. No, it's not. I assure you, all the best photographers in the world, and this is no disrespect to some of the names that went before us, the Joe McNallys, or the Annie Leibovitzes, or Lindsay Adlers, or Jason Lanier's, or any of them. Every time they go click, it doesn't go on the internet. Every several hundred or several thousand times they go click, it goes on the internet. Okay? So the first suggestion I have for you, Anthony, is stop buying equipment because you've got some nice gear there, which is really completely worthless because you don't use it. And honestly, the next thing you should do is you should turn off this TogChat, stop watching my videos, stop watching everybody's videos. Invest that time and go take pictures. And then once you're looking at those pictures and you're realizing I'm struggling with this or I'm having a problem with that, then you come back here and you ask for guidance, or you join my Facebook group and you ask for guidance. But you definitely need to use the camera, and you need to get past making excuses for not using the camera. So for those of you that are not members of the Facebook group, I just put the link there in the chat window. Please check it out. We would love to have you. Okay. So Alexander TE, love Capture One, but you won't go to Lightroom again ever. Yeah. You know, believe it or not, I use Lightroom for as much as I bitch about Lightroom. Full disclosure, you guys know if you watch my videos, I'm a Capture One user. I use Bridge and I use Photoshop. I use Lightroom for one thing: photos of my grandson. I'll go and visit my grandson on a Sunday and I'll shoot 300 frames and I'll throw them into Lightroom, go through real quick, do a little bit of post-processing on them, and then crop them all down and export out the JPEGs so that I can send them to my son and my daughter-in-law and give my wife copies, and it's fast, super quick. But I don't do all the asset management and all that kind of stuff with it, so I literally just use it for, you know, quick processing and export, done. That's all I use it for. So, but yeah, beyond that, when it comes to my real work, shall we say, I'm a Capture One guy all the way. So, let's see. Cinnamon Girl, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate the super chat. Let's see. You should start doing your new images in Lightroom. I'm a retired commercial photographer and came up on 4x5 in Hasselblad. Lightroom will save you time in the long run. Nah, Cinnamon Girl, unfortunately, Lightroom won't save me any time. That's why I use Capture One. Lightroom is too long, too slow. I can work 50 times faster in Bridge because I don't have to sit there and wait for things to import and export and all that crap. I would encourage you, Cinnamon Girl, check out Bridge. Literally. It's Lightroom without the import-export. And what you have to understand is that the Camera Raw plugin in Photoshop is the same piece of software, the exact same piece of software that runs the develop panel in Lightroom. So if you have Lightroom and Photoshop installed on your computer, they're both on your computer. If you go into your system files and you find the file that's called Camera Raw plugin, I forget what the extension is on it, but if you were to just rename it and then try and launch Photoshop and try and launch Lightroom, neither one of them would work. They both share the exact same plugin. So it looks different because in Photoshop it's a darker panel and it's really long in that, and in Photoshop, in Lightroom, it's a darker panel. In Photoshop, it opens up, you know, full screen, but it's the exact same piece of software that runs them. So Bridge is absolutely faster and quicker because it gets rid of the import stuff. And because Bridge doesn't have the catalog management, Cinnamon Girl, I have over 18 terabytes of image files. There's not a computer that's readily available that would be able to open up a catalog that big. I would have to have all kinds of multiple catalogs, which means I would have to manage then what are all the different catalogs for. Yeah, unfortunately, it just would not work for me. I can find any digital image that I've taken in the last 17 years in less than 3 minutes. Hands down, super simple, really, really easy. I am doing a video that'll be coming out at the end of the summer that is about my particular workflow. But basically setting it up not to tell people, hey, this is the best workflow, because mine's not the best. Mine's the best for me. But basically to kind of walk people through the thought process and how I made the decisions and why I do mine the way that I did so that they can essentially establish their own from there. But I promise you that's much, much more faster than Lightroom is. Much more. Okay. So, Taurus Studios, do you think you'll ever leave DSLR and go a different route? Oh, I'll absolutely go mirrorless when Nikon's ready. Absolutely. I would love to go mirrorless. You know, and I've talked about this in some previous talk chats recently and some other videos. You know, Sony's ahead of the curve. Sony's got the market right now. Sony is kicking ass. They're not going to stay on top forever. And this isn't a pissing match over Sony, Canon, and Nikon gang. It's simply history. So you can go back a couple talk chats when I talked about it. I got into great detail on it. Nikon and Canon, they'll be back on the top of the heap. It'll happen. Sony's not going to stay there. Sony's proven that historically. This camera gear for them, it's going to be a little bit different. I think they're going to last a lot longer. I think they're going to maintain competitiveness, and they're going to stay in the game for sure. But Canon and Nikon aren't going anywhere. They'll be back. And for all of you, mirrorless is the future. Understand that mirrorless is the future. It simply makes sense. Why have a working part in your camera? Number one, why have a working part that's going to break if you don't have to? Number two, why not work with an electronic viewfinder if that electronic viewfinder can give you an accurate image and the speed is there, the refresh rates are there? Why? Because in an electronic, for those of you that don't know, an EVF, electronic viewfinder, you are seeing a finished image. So like when you pick up, if you've never held a Sony in your hand, when you pick up the camera, you look through the viewfinder, you're seeing a finished image. The same with Panasonic, same with Olympus, all those cameras, the Fujis, okay? EVFs are just rule. They're like, who needs the chimp when you've got an EVF, right? It's there, there's your exposure, boom. So will I make the move? Absolutely. But you know, when it makes sense to make it. And a lot of you know, full disclosure, I did leave Nikon a couple years ago. I was a fairly early adopter with Sony. I was not convinced, and I'm still not convinced, that Sony is going to stay at the top of the heap for professionals long term. I'm not. Now, we're just all going to have to agree to disagree, because I know some of you diehard Sony people, I mean no disrespect. I talked about it in a previous video. Go back and watch that. Nikon and Canon, they're not going anywhere. They're, you know, I'm a Nikon guy. I'll be a Nikon guy. That's it. Am I frustrated that it's taking them this long? Of course. Who's not? But yeah, they're not going anywhere. Okay. Amanda, I want to take photos of people. When I've seen photographers use the Alien B B800 and Einstein, and the photos come out amazing. I want something that will be bright and give off a warmer tone. Okay, so first of all, and that's the follow-up to her earlier question, in case you forgot. Amanda asked me the question about should she go with the Einstein or get an Alien B or a Digi-B. The warmer tone, that's not coming from the lights, okay? The Alien Bs, the Digi-Bs, the Einstein, they're all balanced at the same color temperature. So they're not giving different tones. They're giving daylight balance, light, and it's not warm. It's daylight balanced. So the warmer tone, that's something that the photographer's doing that you're seeing, okay? As far as, you know, something that's bright, if I'm not mistaken, the Einstein is, in fact, one of you guys can help me. What are the watt seconds on the Einstein? Let's see here. I'm going to check it out real quick. I believe it's the same as the Alien B B800s, is it not? It's a 640 watt second flash, which is the same as the Alien B800. So it's not actually any brighter, Amanda. So you kind of confirmed for me what I guessed. You haven't done your research. You don't know why you want that light. So based on the information that you gave me in your follow-up comment here, you want to take pictures of people, you've seen photographers use the B800 and the Einstein, and the photos come out amazing. Well, the photos come out amazing not because they're using the Einstein and the B800. The photos came out amazing because the photographers know what the hell they're doing. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's what's going on here, okay? I will tell you straight up, the B800 or the Einstein, that's a lot of light. That's a lot of light. So, you know, that leads me to another set of questions. Well, where are you going to be using them? Are you using them outside in a field, or are you using them in a studio? And if so, how big's your studio? Is your studio in your living room, or your garage, or your basement? So, for instance, you've seen my video on building a studio in your basement. You don't need 640 watt seconds in a space that size. You simply don't. Nobody does. So, you know, it comes down to really kind of understanding flashes. Amanda, sincerely, what I would encourage you to do, visit my YouTube channel. There is, in fact, here, let me switch the screen over and get to my YouTube channel really quick here. Here, we're going to go here. So, Amanda, on my YouTube channel, if you scroll down, I believe it, yeah, Flash Photography. Start out with these videos, specifically the Flash Battle 1 and the Flash Battle 2. It's going to tell you a lot about differences between speedlights and monolights, and also how you would make a choice. Then you need to get into the modifiers and the why, okay? If you haven't watched it yet, watch the video that's all the way up at the top of the channel about the DIY home studio, because that way you'll see how my studio is set up, and you'll understand if you've got a comparable space or smaller, you don't need a light that's that big. If you're working in a bigger space, well then, okay, you know, then maybe it's worth considering. But you know, believe me, it's not that the Alien Bs or the Digi-Bs or even the Einsteins are the most expensive strobes in the world, because they're not. But you're talking about spending a lot of money here, and you don't really know why you're spending it. That's problematic. It is. So I would encourage you, I think, Amanda, you're a member of my Facebook group. If you are, you might want to try and get together a post or two in the Facebook group, so that as members of the group, we can kind of get a sense of your work and what you're doing and where you're at, and then ask that question about the strobes. And you're going to get a lot more personalized feedback, not just from myself, but from other photographers around the world, many of whom are indeed Paul C. Buff users, okay? I'm a huge fan of the Paul C. Buff product. I want to make it clear. I'm not dumping on that. Huge fan of it. But I think you're approaching your purchase decision in a way that's going to cost you a lot more money than you ultimately need to spend, okay? Marcos, considering that our work is a great percentage practice and experience, you recommend to take formal course on post-production? Not only learn from YouTube. No, actually, there are great resources on YouTube. But here's the thing. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying before and what I've said many, many times before about the learning process. You can learn everything you need to know about retouching on YouTube and suck at it. It's just like taking pictures. You got to do it. You got to do it. You got to do it. So, I took the alternate approach to learning. So I started using Photoshop in 1996. That's the first time I used Photoshop, okay? Before Nikon came out with the D1, long before. I was completely self-taught. To this day, still self-taught. As the internet grew up, as YouTube grew up, indeed, if I wanted to learn about more advanced techniques, I would try them first and usually fail miserably. Then I would go to YouTube. I would see what somebody had to say and how they explained it. And then I'd go back and I'd try it and I'd try it and I'd try it and I'd experiment and I'd really learn it. You have to really do it. So, do you need to take class? No. Classes, workshops. In fact, here, I'll make the statement. You guys can quote me, but make sure you quote all of it. Most of the workshops, most of the photography workshops that are being taught today, most of the photography classes that are being taught today suck. Absolutely suck. So yes, I'm talking about every photographer whose name pops into your head right now that teaches workshops and classes, myself included. Now, why would I say something like that? They suck because of the people that attend them, not the people that teach them. Yes, there are people teaching workshops that don't know their head from a hole in the ground and all that stuff, and they suck, okay? But there's really not a lot of that. And plus, you can usually figure that out before you sign up for the course. The reason workshops suck is because people go into the workshops with the wrong expectations. And a Photoshop class is the same example. A Photoshop class can teach you everything you need to know, and you'll come out knowing nothing. Because most Photoshop classes aren't going to give you the time to really practice it. And just doing it once, like the instructor does it, and then you do it, that's not teaching you a damn thing. It's not. You have to do it over and over and over again. You have to build your visual database and build your understanding, your functional understanding of the techniques. So my advice is, no, put in the time. That's the thing, guys, with all this stuff, and that's kind of what I said earlier. The challenge that most young new photographers have is they want the shortcut. Everybody wants the shortcut. All this stuff that I share with you guys took me 40 years, which means I'm either really stupid that it took me that long, or it just really does take you that long. I learned a lot of it in my 20s, but didn't know what the hell to do with it. Because it takes years and years and years of using it and screwing stuff up and experimenting and trying it and really trying to figure it out before you really know. So it's one of those things, ultimately, guys, you gotta put in the time, bottom line, okay? So let's see. Thomas Palmer, always a PSD into Photoshop. I never work on tips, always go into PSD. Hemraj, do I have a video or advice on cataloging? I am going to do that towards the end of the summer. I promise you, I'm going to basically share the way I do it and kind of what my process is and how I came up with my process, okay? Adamus Art, how would you balance full-time work, family, and photography? When I want to practice more, my wife keeps saying she wants to spend more time with me. I know how she feels, but I want to practice. Dude, that's the kind of question that you go ask a relationship therapist. I'll share and be completely honest. I am married to the most amazing woman in the world. She is my third wife. It took me 3 times to get it right. My first marriage failed because we were very young. I was 20 years old when I got married the first time. Okay, this is in 1980 when I got married. I thought I could do everything, and guess what? I couldn't. But what finally became the great divide was my photography, because I was not willing to be a good husband. I wanted to be a good photographer, and that was the entire focus of my life, and you can't do both. So, what I've learned after a lot of years and a failed marriage and failed relationships is that there has to be a balance. I am a person that if I could, I would be doing what I'm doing 7 days a week, like probably 14 hours a day or more. Absolutely. Fortunately, I've grown up enough that when I met my wife 17 years ago, I not only understood the importance, but wanted to have more balance in my life. And it's something that I still struggle with today. Absolutely. Fortunately, you know, we have a relationship where she knows she can literally say so. And I know that generally if she says so, she's going to be right. I've been neglecting things. And even then, she's usually nice enough not to kind of hit me over the head with it, but she'll hint. But I get it. And it is important to me, but I can get lost in all of this. So I do have to keep reminding myself. So, being really honest with you, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not easy, Adamos. But unfortunately, if I'm being really honest, that question's more of a relationship coach question than it is a photographer question, because I certainly didn't do it perfectly. It's taken me a lot of years and some big mistakes to kind of work through that. I won't lie. Okay. So let's see. Jazzy Woos. I'll start collecting my studio gear. This will happen in steps. Good. Steps are good, man. Okay. I want to use it in and outdoor for general purpose. What do you suggest to start with being the most versatile? I strongly suggest working with a shoot-through umbrella. You clearly have missed a very important video. You need to go back. Let me scroll down here on my channel page. That one right there, Light Modifiers 101. Watch that video. And pretty much every other video that I have about doing portraits, but specifically that video. And I talk about the answer to your question in that video, and that is I would definitely encourage you to start out with a shoot-through umbrella. Absolutely. So let's see. Chris Winter, I use a few 8600 model lights, City 600 in the UK, Flashpoint 600. Yeah, they're the Flashpoint 600s or 620s or something like that here in the US. They have high-speed sync at TTL. I think those are a lot better option than the Pulsey buff strobes. Chris, nah, man, you're one of those hardcore guys. If you need to shoot high-speed sync and you need to shoot TTL, then sure, they're a better option because the buff strobes aren't TTL, okay? But if you're like me and you understand photography, there's no reason to shoot TTL. There simply isn't, okay? I'll go out and do a wedding tomorrow. I don't need TTL. I definitely don't need high-speed sync. I'll make the whole bridal party jump up in the air. I'll light them with a strobe, and I'll stop the action in daylight, in bright sun. I don't need high-speed sync to do that. We did that, all that stuff that you're doing with all that cool gear. We did that crap back in the 70s and the 80s, man. With, ready? 4 letters. Film. And guess what we didn't have? Ready? 4 letters. Auto. There was no such thing. And there was no high-speed sync or TTL. But wow, we still took really cool pictures and it worked. So, those features, I don't want to say they're gimmick features. They are definitely convenience features. But the problem of it is most of the people that have those features don't actually know how to use them, when to use them, why to use them. And then they just throw everything on auto, which we all know, auto is a 4-letter word for forget about it. Doesn't work. So no, I would not say for somebody that does not already have a specific need for those features that they should be buying those. Plus, for studio purposes, the Flashpoint 600s suck. Or 620s, whatever they suck. You can pop off like 5 frames in a row and then they're done. They have to cool down. So it's like using a speed light. Why would you want to buy a monolight that's going to work like a speed light? And they're heavy. They're monsters. So, yeah, not a big fan of them. They're really inexpensive, which is great. So if you're on a super tight budget, they can get you through. But yeah, not really ideal for me. Okay, so Melnick Studios. I know a lot of divorce photographers. Yeah, it's it happens. So that's life. So Thomas, any cloud backup tips? Yeah, man. Go back to my YouTube channel. We got a lot of people watching tonight that need to be catching up on my videos. So I mean, that's kind of cool. But let's see here. Let me do a quick search up at the top. So if you can see, I'm doing a search up at the top. I'm typing in backup and right there, photo backup and storage. That's what you want to watch there, Thomas. That'll help you out. So, all right, Jackie, this is going to be the last question of the night because I'm way over time. Shocker. Joe ran over. That's like a novel concept, right? Adamos, thank you. I mean, yeah, it's it's not, the greatest story in the world, but it is what it is. So there's no reason for me to lie to anybody about it. But Jackie, how do I create a disclosure form to protect the client and myself? I don't know why you need a disclosure form to protect the client and yourself, Jackie. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. So what I would encourage you to do, Jackie, I think you're a member of my Facebook group. If you're not, why not? You need to be, okay? Here, one last time, I will throw this in here for you guys so that you have the link. Join the Facebook group and post that question in the Facebook group, but you got to give me a little bit more background, like why do you think you need a disclosure form? What kind of client, what kind of photographs are you taking? If I need to sign a disclosure form to find that information out from you, well, then I can't help you. No pun intended. But seriously, I've never made a client sign a disclosure form in my entire life. Like I literally cannot imagine a reason why I would need one of my clients to sign some kind of an NDA. Oh, Tammy, thank you for reminding me. Totally. All right, gang. Listen, I am going to say goodnight. Couple quick pieces of business. I already gave you guys all the social media stuff, so seriously, thank you for that. In the meantime, if you are not a member of my Facebook group, please do join. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that. All that good stuff. Thumbs up, always greatly appreciated. But seriously, gang, like going back to the very beginning of tonight's video, what's the message? The message is you got to put in the time. You got to take pictures. You got to do the hard work. So I appreciate and I sincerely love all of you for taking the time to be here tonight to have a conversation. And Chris Winter, I don't know if you've ever been in any of these before, but for those of you that are regular followers, I don't think I agreed with half of what Chris had to type tonight. But Chris, thank you, because that's the way I like to have a conversation and a debate. You get people that come in and they like to do things one way and they got to dig their heels in and it's like, I'm right, you're wrong. And that's where all the BS that we see on the internet happens, okay? It is awesome. Thomas, thank you so much, man. I really, really, really appreciate it. It is so awesome to be able to have a discussion with somebody and discuss ideas and reasons and get to the whys behind the decisions. So seriously, Chris, thank you for that. It's awesome to disagree with somebody, but be able to teach somebody as a result of the conversation, not just you or me, but the other people listening. So I really, really appreciate that. Jackie Lenz, real estate, definitely join my group. You don't need a non-disclosure form for real estate pictures. You just don't. Unless it's a matter of your clients want a guarantee that you're not going to post the pictures online. But I would try and keep it as simple as possible. So gang, bottom line is get out and take pictures. Put in the work, okay? Take a little YouTube break if you have to. I know that's going to cost me views and cost some other photographers views. Use that time to shoot something. So, you know the drill. Remember these words. Thanks again. Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now go pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot, it's your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.